Hello and welcome to Old Ways Gardening and Prepping. My name is Teresa. I would like to welcome you into the kitchen where we're going to have fun this evening and we're going to make an very old fashioned sauerkraut. Now, traditionally it was with green cabbage. I was blessed with red cabbage, purple cabbage is what I usually call it. It works just as fine. It has actually more nutrients in it, medicinally wise, because the purple is so good for your health and your gut biome. And sauerkraut is an old recipe that comes back from Germany, Poland, all through there. And it was brought over to America with the immigrants, the ancestors, when they came over. So we're going to have fun making some sauerkraut. So come on along with me and let's get busy. Okay, make sure everything you use is clean and sanitized. Your cutting board, you're going to need a good sturdy butcher knife. Of course, your cabbages, if they have any bruises or anything, cut those out. Make sure that any bad leaves, outer leaves are off, and that the cores are trimmed on the bottom. You're going to want, with as much as I'm making, I use a food grade 5-gallon bucket. It's easier to do it that way. Now you're going to want a good measuring cup and a bowl to mix each. And it's going to be a succession of batches to make one big batch. And you're going to want some kind of stick, a potato masher. Unfortunately, I don't own what they call a kraut pounder. Yes, it looks like a little bat, a little baseball bat, and you use it to beat the kraut with, and I'll show you that. Once I like to get at least 3 batches um, made and into the bucket before I do it. Now, what I call a batch is 8 cups, this measuring cup full, and I will bring you along for that as well. So, let's get busy and we're going to have some fun. Now, this is the first recipe for just plain traditional seasoned kraut. I'm going to do a second kraut recipe and kick it up a little bit. Now, this one has fairly good leaves. Let's see. They don't always want to peel correctly, but that's okay. From each of the cabbages, you want to save some of the leaves. I will show you that as we get towards the end. Look how beautiful that cabbage is. Look how beautiful. Okay, you're going to want to cut it in quarters. Let's flip it over. Any little pieces. Don't waste anything. It all goes in to the kraut. Alright, you're going to want to take the core out. I have a bucket for that. Now, if you have rabbits, chickens, save your cores and give to them. They will absolutely love you for it. And here's where the fun begins. Because I don't use a food processor. I cut my kraut by hand. You want thin strips. Uh-oh, let me aim the camera down a little more. There we go. You want thin strips. There we go. And no, they do not have to be perfect. You want to break them up really good. And do not worry, you can use green cabbage for this as well. I just happen to have red cabbage. And be prepared. Your hands are going to get stained. You're going to be perfectly fine. Don't worry one bit. Making sauerkraut is not hard, but it is a labor of love because it takes time. And if you don't like the longer pieces, you can break them in half or chop it down a little bit. You don't want it perfectly fine. I like bigger pieces. I do cut them down so that they're more manageable. You can break them up as you go, or you'll definitely be breaking them up more in the bowl here in a minute. And I love the smell of cabbage. And another thing, always know where your fingers are when you're using the knife. Okay, we're going to start on this one. Okay, we're going to call that 8 cups. It's a hair bit more. And like I said, don't waste no little pieces. Alright, you're going to pour your 8 cups of cabbage into your bowl. Okay, now here comes the magic. And don't anybody go screaming, because this is the recipe. You want 1 tablespoon, a little extra, but 1 tablespoon for 8 cups of cabbage. And you want to get in there and use force. Mix that salt in to that cabbage. God, it smells so good, y'all. And do massage it in there. You see how the moisture's starting to come out? That's what you want to see. The more juice you can make this cabbage release, that is your brine. You should not have to add any water whatsoever when you go to start fermenting your sauerkraut. And see, your hands are going to get purple. Now what I do, and my bucket is clean and sanitized. You're fermenting. You want everything to be absolutely as clean as possible. Okay. Put the lid back on, because I'm telling you, if there's a gnat within the vicinity, it will find it, and I just saw one fly by. Okay. And like I said, if you like smaller cut sauerkraut, definitely make it smaller. I like it I like it because it's going to break down, y'all. I like the longer pieces. And try to get them thin. I'm not talking paper thin, but thin. And you got to remember, it's going to break down quite a bit as it ferments. Now, if you don't want to make a giant batch like I'm doing, 1 8 cups of cabbage and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. Do not use table salt. That stuff is hideous. It has caking ingredients and agents and all kinds of other crap in it. Kosher salt, sea salt. Just make sure that it has no caking additives or anything like that in it, or anti-caking additives. You want your salt as pure as possible. Now, if you want to do less of a batch than I am, 8 cups of coleslaw, I knew it was coming. 8 cups of the cabbage and 1 tablespoon of the salt, Lord, should be enough to fill once you pound it, which I'll bring you back for that here after a while. Should be plenty for a quart jar. Just think of your ancestors sitting around chopping, oh my God, many, many heads of cabbage, because they were usually blessed to have big, beautiful crops. One day I'm going to have them big crops. But your bucket also, let's talk about the bucket. That needs to be food safe. Now, if you're blessed to have a crock or a ginormous big jar, you can do the kraut in that as well. But you want to make sure you get that core out. And your chickens, and especially your rabbits, will love you for it. Sauerkraut is so healthy for you. Anything fermented is good for you, especially for your digestive system, your gut biome. And of course, I'll have more information in the description box below the video about how extremely healthy the purple vegetables are for you. I'm going to add just a little bit more. And I realized I forgot. I'm going to do it now while I'm thinking about it. A leaf off of here to put on the top. And we don't have to be perfect, so don't worry about that. Alright, we got 8 more cups. And yes, it takes a while, y'all. But anything worth it. Anything that takes a while to make, absolutely worth it. Okay. That's a tablespoon. For every 8 cups, you have to use a tablespoon of salt. It might seem like a lot of salt, but our ancestors done the same thing. It keeps mold and bacteria from growing inside the brine. Oh, and yes, cabbage squeaks. That's a beautiful sound. You want to get that salt worked in good. I don't know what that was. I'm in the kitchen alone. But you want to get that salt massaged in really good. Because the more you can get that cabbage to release its juices, the more brine you will have. Alright, I will bring you back after I get my next batch of cabbage done, because it'll be enough in the bucket to start pounding the cabbage. I'll bring you right back. Okay, I have 3 batches of the beginning of sauerkraut, and now the pounding of the kraut. What you're trying to do is encourage that cabbage even more with releasing more of its juices. It's not going to mash up your cabbage. It's just going to break the fibers to where more of the juices will come out and the salt will mix with it. But this is when a kraut pounder comes in handy, or a small baseball bat. Like I said, making sauerkraut is a labor of love, but it's worth every second, believe me. And if you need any encouragement, always think of somebody that's gave you trouble. And pound the kraut even more. But it's best to think happy thoughts when you're making food for yourselves. That energy goes into the food. Now, since I'm going to be doing this even more, I'm going to start pounding it every time I add one batch of cabbage into the bucket. Starting to see a whole bunch of, well, not a whole bunch, but juice coming out in the bottom of the bucket. Okay, always taste it. I'm going to add a tablespoon more of salt. You want your mixture to be salty, but not ungodly salty. It's like I said, the salt is going to keep your kraut from going bad. always clean it off. Alright, I will bring you back whichever comes first. My bucket is full or I'm out of cabbage. Alright, see, and always keep your lid on it because I'm telling you, gnats. If one gnat gets in it, it'll ruin your batch of kraut. You got to be on the lookout and be careful. Because I'm telling you, all this work and cabbage, it's worth being safe than sorry. Keep an eye on everything because those gnats will try everything they possibly can to get into this bucket. And they're not welcome. Alright, I will bring you back either when I get enough in the bucket or I run out of cabbage. See you here in a little bit. Okay, I am finally done. I did manage to get the 8 heads of cabbage into the bucket. Now, the cabbage is a whole lot drier than I expected, but this has been a weird year. So, I'm going to make up a little bit extra brine because I want to make sure that there is plenty of brine in the cabbage. So I'm going to bring you up here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, for the brine, to add to the brine, you're going to want a quart jar, and of course I left my lid. Hold on. Okay, for every quart of water, you want a tablespoon of salt. Now, you're going to want to use either purified water, distilled water, filtered water. Do not use tap water. Do not use well water because they can have little bugs in them. And of course, I'm using my Berkey. Now, I might have to make a couple jars. I'm not sure yet, but I wanted to show you at least how to make the first jar. And you know, I told you about purple hands. It's a thing of love. You want to make sure all your salt is dissolved. Alright, I'm going to take you back to the bucket now that you saw how I make it. Okay, the brine, the natural brine, which I prefer the juice of the cabbage and the salt, is almost to the top. Now, of course, it's going to keep making a little bit more brine as it sits and ferments. You want to make sure your sides of the bucket, all the cabbage is down in it. Now, as you can see, that's packed. I'm going to loosen it up. Okay, turn it to the bottom. I have packed that good. And this is why you make sure that your hands are washed and very clean. And like I said, it's going to keep making more brine as the cabbage breaks down more. I'm going to make at least one more quart jar of brine water. But you want to make sure that your cabbage is covered, because that can cause mold to start. Of course, you can see that there's quite a bit. It could use some more, but and you want to taste your brine. Stick your finger in it. It should be good and salty. I'm going to add just a tad bit more salt. Not much. Just a sprinkling on top. I want to make sure. There we go. It's supposed to be salty like the sea. And you see the bubbles. That's perfectly fine. That means things are starting to work. Yes. Okay. Now you remember I had said about saving some of your leaves from the heads of cabbage. And this is going to help the kraut to stay under the brine. And don't worry, we're not done yet. Like I said, it's a labor of love, y'all. Kraut is a very, very important food and a tradition as well. But look how pretty that is. Beautiful. And if you have to, it's okay to rip them up, because you don't want them puckering up. That's air bubbles. Possibilities for air bubbles. Okay. Clean up the sides of your bucket. Okay. Make sure that the weight you use is clean and will fit into your bucket. And see, that's what you want to see. I want to make sure to tuck these leaves in. And you're going to want to put a weight. Now, if you're doing it in quart jars, you'll use the glass weights. I know people, or used to know people, they've passed now, who had special rocks that were passed down as weights. Just make sure everything's clean and sanitized. I usually use, I'll come back with a quart jar, but you want that weighted down. Look at that beautiful purple. Y'all see that? So healthy for you. You want to make sure you keep the cabbage below the plate. And the weight will continue, the brine will continue to rise because it's going to keep breaking down. And I probably don't have room for a quart jar, so I might do a second pint. But for now, it's okay. And I can tell that the brine is going to keep rising, which is fine. You want it to keep making brine. Alright, now here comes the fun part. Double check your lid. Keep it wiped down clean. Don't want any possibilities of anything that can mold. Now is when you want to make sure that your lid is completely secured. Alright, I'm going to move the camera so we can do a little talking. Okay, we are done with the process of making sauerkraut, but the fermentation is now beginning. The brine is up over the plate now, which is a good thing. You want to make sure that brine is above your cabbage, because that's what keeps it in an anaerobic state and keeps mold from being able to grow in your kraut. Now, you might not want to do as large of a bucket or batch as I did. You can do it in jars. It's not hard, and yes, you'll pound the cabbage in the jars as well. You're going to need a weight. This is a beautiful glass weight. This beautiful set was given to me by Tammy, and I am still so thankful for them. Hold on a minute. Now you can do kraut in jars, which is the next recipe that I'm fixing to do. I will show you how to. But you're going to need a weight of some kind to weigh down and something of some weight to it to keep the cabbage, the kraut below the brine. I love these. These are called, I call them bubblers. They're called airlocks. And I'll show you exactly how to use these in the next cabbage sauerkraut recipe. This keeps, now gnats can get through the little air holes, but they can't get into your kraut because the water that I'll be putting in here will keep that from happening, which I will show you in the next video. Just remember, when making sauerkraut, make sure your hands and everything is clean and sanitized. These just had a bath and got washed really good in some bleachy, soapy water. But making kraut is so easy. It's just time consuming and takes. Hold on, I'm just going to quit fighting with the tripod. It just takes time. Now, since I'm doing it in the bucket, I'm going to have to check on the kraut daily and what's called burp the bucket. Now, that means let the gases out, check on the kraut, make sure everything's looking good. If any white scum forms, slowly and gently just scoop it off. It shouldn't. I haven't had it ever happen, but first time for everything. Now, if you do the airlock, you just have to keep checking on your water, make sure no scum forms, and just gently scrape that off and keep an eye on everything. Now, if you don't use the airlock and you use the old-fashioned method of the weight and just a lid, you're going to have to burp that lid daily. The airlock, you don't have to. That's what helps let the air out, because it will bubble inside and the gases will escape. And I'll show you that in this next video, how to use the airlock system. Like I said, in the bucket, you check it daily, burp the bucket. At about 2 weeks, your kraut will be kinda ready. It won't have the really strong sour taste yet. That takes time. At least a month's time, you will have really good sour kraut. It'll have that wonderful sour taste. I'll bring you back because I'm going to let mine go until it gets that really good sour taste. So it might be a month and a half. It might be 2 months. Now, you can sauerkraut. Now, the only thing is it will lose its a lot of its probiotic benefits. It'll lose some, not all. Or if you're lucky enough to have a basement, a root cellar, somewhere cool, you can go ahead once your sauerkraut gets to the flavor that you like. It's all about you. You taste it after 2 weeks and see how it's doing. If at the 2 week mark, that's the way you like for it to taste, it's done. You can jar it up, put it in the fridge, and that will stop the fermentation cycle. Or if you have a really cold basement or root cellar, you can jar them up, put them in the basement, and that'll be fine. As long as it's cold in there, the fermenting should stop. But it will continue to, the flavor will age and it'll get better with time. Now, it don't last indefinitely. After about 3 months or so, if you leave it in the bucket, put it in a cold place, it can get mushy, and you don't want your kraut to be mushy. I'll bring y'all along when it gets to the point where I want it. Now, storing this baby in a dark, warm place, not hot, about 65 to 75 degrees. and it should be fine while it ferments. You don't want it to get cold while it ferments because that can stop and kill the ferment. It's not hard, y'all. It's just a lot of rules to follow. Other than that, I've got almost 3/4 of a 5-gallon bucket full of some of the best tasting sauerkraut. Well, cut cabbage at the moment, salty cabbage. Um, like I said, I'll bring y'all back at the 2 week mark so you can see what it looks like and so on. I'll do update videos, and then when it gets to the flavor that I want it, then I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section below. I hope this video inspires you to make your own homemade sauerkraut like our ancestors have done for centuries. It is delicious and it is beyond healthy for you. So many probiotics. Sauerkraut is one of the main probiotics there is out there for gut health and health of your body. Everyone, y'all take care. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Continue to stock up your pantries with food that will sustain you. I'm pointing at the bucket. And food that will nourish you. Continue to stock up medicine that will heal you. Protection of all kinds and the bare necessities for you to survive on. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. May you each be blessed. Hoot hoot. Y'all take care.